Gaius Octavian, grandnephew of Julius Caesar. When the Roman leader was assassinated in the year 44 BC, the young Octavio was only 18 years old and had practically no political and military experience. Even so, he managed to overcome all his rivals and enemies and become the first emperor of the Roman Empire, being also one of the most powerful. Before starting the program, in which we are going to see how young Octavio overcame all the difficulties he encountered, let's listen to the following message, which I am sure many of you will know. Perseverance. Nothing in the world can replace perseverance. Talent won't do it. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful men with talent. Neither does genius, because genius without recognition is useless. Education, no, the world is full of educated fools. But persistence and determination alone are almighty. Well, with that said, let's get started. After Caesar's assassination on March 15, 44 BC, his will was read. It was then that, to everyone's surprise, it was discovered that Caesar had left Octavio as his main heir, in which, in addition to adopting him, he left him approximately 75% of his wealth. Octavio was in the Balkans, specifically in the city of Apollonia. Once he heard the news, he headed for Rome. It was precisely at this moment that his struggle to gain total control of the Roman Republic began. As we have said before, Octavio, in addition to being very young and lacking the military or political experience that men like Antony, Cassius, Brutus, Lepidus, or Cicero could have, also had another great disadvantage. Basically, he was a boy who was always sick. The first thing Octavio did was assert himself as Caesar's heir, in an attempt to gain all the fame and respect that his great-aunt had had. To do this, one of his first and main actions was to fulfill the word of Caesar. The late Roman leader had included in his will that he bequeathed each citizen of Rome 300 sesterces. In addition, he organized gladiatorial games that lasted more than a week. In order to carry out these actions, Octavio needed very large amounts of money, and to top it off, Marco Antonio, he was the one who kept Julius Caesar's money, and he had no intention of giving it to Octavio. Faced with this situation, Octavio had to ask all his relatives and acquaintances for money, and take out all kinds of loans. In the future, he would use a similar strategy to recruit entire legions, for which he promised sums of money to his new soldiers that Octavio did not directly have, and also offered them plots of land in the same Italian peninsula, which he did not have either. After this type of actions, in which Octavio was promising and offering everything, he began to be noticed in Rome. The next phase was to establish political alliances. Before analyzing them, let's see a series of curiosities that Octavio used to improve the image they had of him. In the first place, when Octavian arrived in Rome after the death of Julius Caesar, there was an unusual atmospheric phenomenon. The eruption of Etna just in that same year had caused the temperatures to drop, and they were colder than normal. On the other hand, with all the particles in suspension, a very striking rainbow was formed that they were not used to seeing. This event in the sky was used by Octavian as a sign from the gods that they approved of his presence, and indicated the promising future to which he was destined. As if that were not enough, the trail of a comet was visible in Rome just during the week in which the young Octavio was celebrating the gladiatorial games. This again was interpreted as another sign of good omen, since Octavio gave money to many fortune tellers so that they could interpret and spread it. Lastly, another card that Octavio played during those first months was his intention to avenge Caesar's death. With this, Octavio won over many supporters, since the official position of the other leaders, such as Marco Antonio, had been reconciliation. The truth is that when Caesar was assassinated, the atmosphere in Rome was very tense. Supporters of both sides toured the city wanting to fight, and to impose their will. Due to this, and with the aim of relaxing the atmosphere, no one spoke of revenge during those first weeks, and the Senate tried to continue as if nothing had happened. When Octavian arrived in Rome, he completely turned the situation upside down, and ensured that Caesar's killers would be hunted down and brought to justice. This forced people like Marco Antonio to change his position, and he had to toughen his speech so that he would not be considered weak. From this point on, Octavian would ally himself with both the alleged Caesarian side, or even with Caesar's assassins, while his power continued to increase. With this we arrive at the creation of the Second Triumvirate, composed of Marco Antonio, Lepido, and Octavio in the year 43 before Christ. One of their greatest victories was obtained at the Battle of Philippi in the year 42, in which they defeated Brutus and Cassius, thus ending Caesar's assassins. It should be noted that Octavio suffered a great defeat in this battle, and that he had to be saved by Marco Antonio. Also, Caesar's heir was ill during the fighting, and it took him many weeks to recover. Around this time, the time had come to discharge many of his troops, or to pay him the high amounts of money that he had promised his soldiers. The problem he found himself with is that he didn't have land to distribute, nor did he have money. How did you solve this problem? Well, very simple. Marco Antonio, Octavio, and Lepido enacted a series of laws in which they kept the right to include anyone they wanted in a list of outlaws. Anyone who appeared on this list was likely to be arrested, and even killed with impunity. Bounties were placed on the heads of outlaws to encourage everyone to get involved. Once the outlaw was found and executed, all of his property and assets were confiscated by the state. It was a real bloodbath. Because its main objective was collection, the people who appeared on these lists, which were updated daily, used to be very wealthy people with many properties. Of course, it also included any person who in the past had been able to criticize any of them. One of the most famous deaths that resulted from this was that of Cicero himself. Again, when he had to give his legionnaires a place to settle in the Italian peninsula itself, where everything was already occupied, he had to resort to expropriation and murder. As everyone imagines, all this bloodbath they provoked made them win many enemies among the civilian population, but on the other hand, it served to please the army, which, after all, is the only important thing in this type of situations. From this point the situation continued to evolve, and Octavian took control of the western part of the still Roman Republic, and Marco Antonio with the eastern. The mission of each one was, on the one hand, to deal with Pompey's son who was still causing problems in the western Mediterranean, and on the other, to launch the campaign in the Parthian kingdom, just as Caesar had already planned. Octavian again suffered heavy naval defeats against Sextus Pompey, though he eventually prevailed and defeated him, not without much help from Lepidus and reinforcements sent by Mark Antony. Marco Antonio was not so lucky in the campaign that he launched on the Parthian kingdom in the year 37 BC. After the failure of him in the east, the power of Octavio began to be superior to that of Marco Antonio. Finally, the war between the two would break out in the year 31 BC, and above all I predict, Octavio ended up defeating Marco Antonio a year later. With Antony's death, Octavian became the unquestioned ruler of Rome, and no one else dared to rise up against him. Already without rivals, he began to accumulate more and more power, until it became inevitable that the Senate itself would have to declare him emperor by the year 27 BC, and he would be known as Caesar Augustus. In summary, we have to say that the period after Julius Caesar was a real bloodbath for the Romans. Alliances were continually being formed and broken, and the only thing that mattered was seizing power. Octavio was the one who best knew how to manage in this situation, and despite his little experience, his youth, his physical weakness and his numerous initial defeats, he finally knew how to prevail, and in the most upstart way possible he knew how to finish off all his enemies. Well, so far this interesting program. If you want to see everything related to the assassination of Julius Caesar, I leave you in the description the program that we recently uploaded on that matter. We say goodbye here. Many thanks to everyone, especially the sponsors who make this possible. Subscribe and share this program if you liked it, and see you in the next one. See you soon.